Are you sick and tired of enemies to lovers books where they aren't actually enemies? I read over 200 books in 2024 on Kindle Unlimited. Here are the 9 books that I recommend where there is genuine hatred between the 2 main characters. Warning, most of these books are darker romances. I'll even be sharing the darkest romance that I read this year. But let's start with one of the first books I've ever given 5 stars. And that is Desired is Blood by Zoe Draven. This book is literally filled with all of my favorite tropes, but it was written in such a different way than I'm used to. The book opens to Gemma Hara, a struggling first daughter in the House of Hara. It was a family name once associated with heroism, but was tarnished by her father's mercurial moods. Drowning in her father's misdeeds and debts, she tries to keep her family afloat by accepting a marriage proposal from a Kylor. They are mysterious vampire aliens who are known to be cruel and bloodthirsty monsters. And on their first meeting, Azur, the High Lord of Lara, does nothing to debunk the rumors. Azur has his own agenda for their marriage, but all of that gets flipped on its head the first time he tries her blood. Now, I promise you haven't heard of the 3rd book on this list. I believe it has under 200 reviews on Amazon and under 600 on Goodreads. But before we get to that one, let's talk about Whispers of the Deep by Emma Hamm. That was one of the first true enemies to lovers books that I've ever read. An engineer named Mira, who lives in an underwater colony, is kidnapped by a merman-like creature. His name is Argus, and he promises he will keep her until she reveals all of the secrets that she can, so he can destroy her home and all of the people who live in it before they can further compromise any more of their habitat through the polluting structure. Most enemies to lovers books, as you know, just kind of have an insta-love with angst. No. He wanted to kill her. And he tried multiple times in the story. She tried too. So they were even. He also thought she was gross, and she also thought he was kind of gross. And it took a very long time for this story to have any progression romantically. Payoff was so perfect, and in my opinion, it was more realistic than most of these enemies to lovers insta-love stories. The next book is Lured by the Dusk by Angela J. Ford. This is another book that was one of my first real enemies to lovers, and as well, it is a Pied Piper retelling, which I didn't realize until part way of the story, but it was actually really well done. The main character, I believe her name is Tanis, is a young woman who is barely tolerated by her rich and noble aunt and uncle, who she was forced to live with after her parents' death. Plotting her escape from their abuse, she decides to take a chance on a rumored buried treasure located near the gilded cage that she lives in with her family. As she's about to run to freedom, armed with the treasures that she can carry, the cursed being that these treasures belong to is awakened, and her punishment? To marry him as he destroys the very town that she lives in. Yeah, I know. It's good. The 4th book on this list made me so angry. But before we get to that one, let's talk about the spiciest book on this list, and that is The Beauty and the Orcs. This book literally had every trope I thought I hated. Accidental pregnancy, body betrayal, kind of cheating, but not really. Like, don't click off, I promise. A bit of a gray zone. Let me explain. The book opens to Kitty, our FMC, who is financed by a rich man who's getting cut off. He only sees her as arm candy, but she has spent years assisting him with his business arrangements and partnership. His empty promises leave her with nowhere to live and no money. Distraught, she seeks out a bar where she could drown her sorrows, and there she meets an orc. He's also there getting sloshed because he just went through a breakup with his partner. After commiserating over how much love sucked, they fall into bed together. And the next morning, he bolts out of her house when he realizes how much she regrets their time together. She's in the midst of still trying to figure out how she's going to make her next month's rent when she gets morning sickness. Yeah. Even against all of her precautions, because orcs are very potent. Delirious, she decides to head towards Orc Mountain to find her one-night stand. But on the way there, she meets his ex-boyfriend, and he is not pleased to see her. I do wish the FMC had more of a backstory, and this book is stuffed with, at times, unnecessary spice. But I will say this book completely turned around how I felt about the series as a whole. The next book was my first foray into hate spice scenes. Before we get to that one, let's talk about the book that made me the most angry on the list, and that is Not the One They Want. Not the One They Want? Not the One They Want. This book made me so angry, but I had to finish it, and that's why I included it on this list. Y'all, this book. The FMC is a well-trained and well-groomed Omega. She has spent years rejecting packs of alphas who have come and asked for her hand. And her dad and stepmom are fed up. When the most eligible pack of bachelors approach her and her father, she knows she has to say yes, even though she's not sure about them. But things take a turn in the story when her betrothed pack leaves her rejected on their wedding night. That is just the beginning of why I was angry in that story. It's juicy. It is juicy. Okay. If you follow me on TikTok, you know that I have a bone to pick about the Shades of Sin series, but the second book in that series is so good. You know how you read a series and there's that one book in it that keeps you holding on? That's the one for me. That is the book for me. We follow Astrid. She is a prized hunter and the sister of the FMC in the first book in the series. She is living in the very land of the being that she used to, the very organization that raised her, and she chose to betray. The head of the King's Guard is then paired with her to watch and monitor her and guard her secretly. And he hates her. She spent most of her life training to, and the later half of her life killing his friends, his family, and people he knows. I wonder why. But the second book opens to her saving his life with no hesitation. She gets severely injured and he is surprised and conflicted, while she is focused on healing up and solving a mystery that's unraveling all around them. We are getting close to the end and I still cannot believe that I'm going to share the darkest story that I read this year. But before I do, let's talk about Alien God by Ursa Dax. Lawrence is abducted by the US government with 2 or 3 other scientists from around the world. They are taken to these planets to observe and mine the resources from them so they can go back to Earth and report their findings. Except the very alien god who is in charge of that planet crashes back onto it and attacks everyone. He thinks that he's scared every human off of the planet or killed any of the ones who are left. He thinks his job is done until it turns out that there is one human who is left that he missed. So now Torrance is stuck on this planet, and not only stuck on it, she is now his prisoner. There is no insta-love. He tried to kill her. She can't stand him and he thinks that she looks weird. There's truly no romantic progression until after more than half of the book. It was truly a slow burn, and with no escape for her, this book moves into fake dating and then a fake marriage for them to solve a mystery that's unfurling around them. The world building was immaculate and I was just so immersed in this weird snow planet. Now let's talk about the darkest story on the list, and that is A Hunt So Wild and Cruel, the retelling of A Christmas Carol with a twist, where the FMC plays the role of Scrooge. FMC is the definition of an ice queen. She is shipped off as a child to a private school and does not set foot back into her kingdom until she is an adult during the untimely death of her parents. Surprisingly, at the hands of the Fae, they chose to spend way more time with than her. After a particularly bad day with her subjects, she is visited by 3 spirits one night. They tell her, hey, we're going to shape and mold you into the best queen that you can be. Her response was to immediately try to fatally stab them. They do survive. What she doesn't realize is that she is their final mission and they are not leaving until they get what they want. This story is extremely dark, so please tread cautiously and check out the content warning. If you enjoyed the fact that the last book was a darker romance, then check out this next video where I tell you about my favorite dark romances that I read in 2024.